So there I am. I'm at the yard, and an undercover operation is coming to fruition. I've only been there a couple of weeks, but I'm an authorised firearms officer, so they wanted us to take guns on this operation. I was going to be part of the attack team, so I wasn't going undercover, but of course I was in plain clothes. And us with our firearms, we were upstairs on a double-decker bus, laying on the floor so people couldn't see us, parked in a car park opposite Regent's Park Zoo in central London. And what was happening was that undercover cops were going to drive into the car park with £70,000 of the commissioner's money in the boot of their car, and they were going to buy a few kilos of heroin. Now, what had happened in the run-up during these negotiations was that one of the undercover cops was a woman. And the villains, not unsurprisingly perhaps, had said, well, we need you to prove that you're not wearing a wire. You're a woman.
Right.
Take your
Strip
top
off.
and your
Yeah.
bras off and your clothes off.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she declined. So these villains then thought, well, actually, this lot are going to be a bit of a soft touch.
Right.
So we're not going to sell them the drugs. We're going to rob them for the money. But this was all unknown to the undercover cops.
Yeah.
They turn up thinking there's going to be a trade.
Yeah.
We're lying on the floor of the bus with our guns, thinking when the heroin arrives in the car park, it'll be...
Yeah.
We'll all come running down the stairs, pull our guns and nick people.
Yeah.
That's what we thought.
Yeah.
Well, we all know about the best laid plans, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
the
dear.
bad guy's car drives into the car park.
Yeah.
Okay. The bad guys get out. They approach the undercover cop's car. The windows wound down. Window winders. That's how long ago it was. Anybody know what they are?
Yeah.
It could be the coolest story ever, but then as soon as you imagine some guy going...
Brilliant.
So the windows are wound down, and unfortunately, my colleague then got sprayed in the face with ammonia. They snatched the car keys.
What is that? Sorry, is that just mace?
No, it's actually a very caustic kind of liquid, which you don't really want to go anywhere near.
Right.
It's been back in the day. It was used for some particular kind of cleaning purposes or something. but
Okay.
it's as toxic as you like, and you know you really don't need it in your life. So they grabbed the keys because, of course, the driver is utterly disabled because he's blinded. They grab the keys, go round to the boot of the car, open the boot, and off they jolly well with the holdall containing the commissioner's £70,000. Right?
Oh dear.
There's a big scream up, as you can imagine. We trundle off the double-decker bus, and there is chaos. We've got colleagues screaming and, holding their faces and all of that kind of stuff. Anyway, I catch a glimpse of what I think is a bad guy legging it off through some trees on the far side of the car park. Well, bearing in mind I was less than half my age and probably less than half my current weight, right? I was a bit nimble in those days,
Right.
believe it or not, and I've gone off after this geezer like a long dog, and I've made ground on him, and as I've got within about 10 yards of him, he can hear me coming behind, so he has kind of stopped, pulled a gun out, a 2.2 pistol, levelled it at me. Now I'm running full tilt, so I could stop, eventually,
Yeah.
right, get my gun out, but that ain't going to end well because it's
No.
giving him too much of an opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and I just couldn't stop, so I just carried on. I went clattering into him. The gun went flying. He went flying. He was nicked. Well, at least we got one of them.
Yeah.
So we then go back to the local police station, and there's a pandemonium going on because the detective inspector in charge of the operation is very, very concerned about his career because
Yeah.
he's just lost 70 grand of the
Yeah.
commissioner's money.
Is that taxpayers' money then? at the
Of
end
course
the day?
it is, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hard-earned taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
As good fortune would have it, witnesses gave evidence about seeing people enter the zoo and all that kind of stuff. And the zoo was searched, and in a skip, hidden under a tarpaulin, was found the holdall with the 70 grand. Obviously,
What?
one of the bad guys has legged it into the zoo,
Yeah.
stuffed it into the skip, and thought, I'll come back
Come
when
back
the dust
later.
is settled,
Yeah.
and I'll come back and get that. So that was recovered. A couple of the other bad guys were identified, and it kind of, that car crash of an operation was rescued to a certain
Yeah.
extent. But I looked at all that, and I went, I'm sure I could be a better undercover cop than that. You know, I'm
Yeah.
sure that they ain't going to rob me.
Yeah.
You know
So-
what I mean? I'm not going to let these
Yeah.
rob me.
I may have missed it when you were telling the story, but how did that mess up then, that operation? Because it seemed like it
the
was,
woman
the-
refused
oh,
to get.
oh,
so
was
they
it
were
purely
like,
because of that?
Yeah,
that-
so the bad guys thought, well, these are a bunch of patsies.
so we'll
Right.
just rob them
You
instead
know,
of doing the deal.
So instead of doing a
right.
deal,
Yeah.
they'll rob them.
Okay, I've got
Yeah.
you. I've got you. Was that so? So is that was the moment when you thought, I'm gonna
Yeah, I'll
go
have a
in."
go at this.
Yeah.
I'll have a go at this. They ain't going to rob me.
Can you remember your first ever time going undercover?
Yes, well, I spent over a decade undercover, so there were countless operations I was involved in, but it was nerve-wracking, it was exciting, as it was on each and every occasion.
Right.
You know,
Did it get less? Did you get less nervous with?
No.
No, you didn't.
No, when you're dealing with people who, and I dealt with a wide array of different people. Some were career criminals, okay? Criminals. Since they could walk, they've been born and raised in criminality, professional gangsters.
Yeah.
And you are sitting in front of them, convincing them that you are one of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you have to be every bit as convincing as they are, or else you're going to get
Found
rumbled
out.
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
So a lot of the time it was utterly terrifying. On other occasions, I was dealing with people who were clearly unwell, who clearly weren't abiding by the phrase, do not get high on what you supply,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they were, quite frankly, off their faces.
Yeah.
Sometimes they quite openly were carrying guns. And it was always a very testing, challenging environment to be in.
Yeah.
Sometimes less so. If, for example, you were sitting down with a wife who wanted her husband murdered and I was pretending to be that assassin,
Yeah.
then
You were telling me this, weren't you? You were telling. Before we get on to that, I wanna just, because it's so intriguing to me. I want to know like every detail. So how do you train to become a career criminal? Do you have to get lessons from actual criminals that have perhaps gone straight? Like, how do you get in the mind of somebody like that when you've not necessarily been brought up around them?
well, bearing in mind I'd been an errant kid,
Yeah.
right? So I knew a bit about being on the other side of the
Yeah.
tracks. But of course, I'd always been a very busy police officer.
Yeah.
So
you're
I'd
around it
nicked
anyway.
hundreds of
Yeah.
criminals.
Yeah.
Right.
In my time, I'd interviewed hundreds
Yeah.
of criminals.
Right.
You know, I'd brought about the downfall of hundreds of criminals.
Yeah.
So to actually just morph into being a crook myself
Yeah.
wasn't that much of a quantum leap.
Yeah.
Now, it would have been if I was professing to be a publicly school educated expert in fine art.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who was buying art and antiques. But I had colleagues that were exactly that.
Right.
So it was their job to go off and buy the stolen Rembrandt and all that kind of game.
Yeah.
And if they wanted a bit of South East London muscle, I'd be their driver and their minder on that kind of job.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
So stick to what you know.
Yeah.
Stick to what you're good at.
And typecast,
And,
basically.
and don't,
Yeah.
and don't ever try to be, something
Something
that
you're
is
really
way
not,
removed
really,
from
really
what you
not.
are.
Is that quite sorry, mate? Is that quite an exciting moment when you're in the boardroom, like, and you've got the crime laid out,
Boardroom.
like Apprentice, like you're Alan Sugar, yeah.
Boardroom. I didn't hang about in boardrooms. I was in boozers. I was in bars. I was in hotels. I was in darkened alleyways. I was in basement restaurants with armed bouncers on the door who were on the side of the bad guys.
But that's once you had your character. I'm talking about when you're developing the plan, when you're coming up with the idea, and you're saying you'll be the henchman, you'll be the driver. Well, I'll say this, I'll say that. Is that quite a fun time, or is it just nerves? Because I'd imagine it's a little bit fun. No.
You have to embrace the adrenaline, but you have to be able to control it,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to think on your feet.
Right.
Because whatever you think you are going into, I can utterly guarantee it will be different. It will not be what you are expecting.
When you said about you're sat opposite these people that have been criminals for life, killers, you name it, and you're trying to convince them of that you're one of them. What sort of is there ever like initiations, like much like that woman? Okay, well if you're not a police officer, then strip off. I'm not saying they've said okay, strip off. Is there like they've got you to do some nasty, dark things to prove you are who you say you are?
Quite often they would say, "Well, you could be an undercover old Bill."
Yeah.
Okay,
Naturally.
because they're paranoid, of course. They're involved in illegality, which they know is going to carry a very hefty sentence if and when they get caught and convicted, and they don't want to go to jail.
No.
So you may have been introduced to them via any different kind of routes or people, or by virtue of frequenting where they frequent, although that was not the most particularly successful way to do it. But you will have these people who have not been born and raised with you, who are inherently suspicious about you, and and it happened on a number of occasions, they would say, you could be old Bill.
Yeah.
Right? If I was in a boozer and that was happening, and I was on the opposite side of the table, what I would then do is pull my chair back, stick my hands under the table, flip the table so the drinks go everywhere. They get drenched, tables upside down, everybody's having a look, and I'm storming out the boozer.
Because you're fucking offended that they'd have the audacity to call you an undercover. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Right?
Brilliant.
And then what did I hear? It's their footsteps coming down the road behind me. I'm sorry. We really didn't mean to offend you.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Please come back in. You've got to understand our position. We didn't mean it.
Yeah.
And then I say to myself,
Have you ever had to do the opposite, where you say to them that they could be the undercover?
no.
I'd imagine that being like
Then
a
you're
double bluff.
You're then bringing up
They're
the
selling
subject.
me gear, though. They're selling me gear, or they're trying to hire me to commit a murder.
So you're the
or
random.
all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the outside.
So it's so it's clear that they're probably not.
Yeah.
If he's got loads of heroin there, I guess.
Yeah.
If they have, because you've got the money.